think tank is urging that both council tax and stamp duty be scrapped and replaced, saying the current system is based on an outdated property valuation, which means council tax paid on expensive houses has lagged behind their soaring values. The idea is instead a so-called proportional property tax of around 0.5%, so 0.5%, could mean 3 out of 4 households in England paying less.
Yeah, we're joined by Shreya Nanda, an economist at the Institute for Public Policy Research. Shreya, good to see you on the programme this morning. What do you think about this proposal to change or replace council tax?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think what we tried to emphasise in the report was that the housing market at the moment is completely broken. You know, on the one side, you have people kind of on an up escalator who've been benefiting from house price inflation over the last 40 to 50 years. And then on the other hand, everyone who hasn't owned a house over that period is kind of on a down escalator where houses are getting more and more expensive every year. And we don't think that's right. We think that that should be shared more fairly through some kind of property tax reform. But at the moment, council tax obviously isn't achieving that because houses that are more expensive pay the same or even less council tax than houses that are much, much cheaper. So we're saying that houses that are more expensive should pay more in tax to help make it fairer.
Is there a situation that some people have been in those houses for the last sort of 20 years or so and they then wouldn't be able to afford the council tax because their income hasn't gone up at the same rate as the value as their house?
That's definitely true, but one proposal is that they'd be able to, put off paying the tax until at a later date when they could afford to pay it or when they sell the house. So we know that house prices, for example, in England have been going up by about 6% every year. So by the time they come to sell the house, they'll have a lot of accrued house price inflation from which they'll be able to pay that tax bill.
Why do you think politicians have shied away from changing the system for so long?
I mean, yeah, it's obviously it's really difficult to do because it affects so many people, as you say. But these proposals, because they make 75% of households better off, I think there's, hopefully we'll have more luck with these proposals because people will say, well, actually, this will make me better off. Like I won't have to pay as much in council tax and stamp duty, especially in places outside of London and the southeast.
How does this affect people who are renting?
So we think that renters will be better off as well because obviously at the moment renters pay council tax, whereas under this proposal it would instead be the landlords paying the property tax. Now some of that might be passed back on to tenants, but we think that on average tenants can still expect to be better off as a result of these proposals. And then also a knock-on effect is that they would free up lots of housing stock that's currently being underused, where people would say, oh, it's not really worth it anymore if it's costing me this much every month. And that would free up more housing stock for renters to either rent or buy.
So who are the 25% who will lose out?
So that's the people currently living in the most expensive houses who benefited the most from house price inflation over the last couple of decades. So, and many of whom are, living in houses with lots of empty rooms. So we're just saying, if you live in a really desirable area, like that housing needs to be used by more people than it is currently so that everyone has a chance to have a decent home and participate in the economy.
Many of those people may be Conservative voters. So how likely do you think it actually is that we'd see some of the changes you're suggesting actually come into practice?
I mean, that's a good question, but like I said, the places that will benefit from this especially are places like Hartlepool, which has some of the highest council tax bills in the country currently. And obviously those are seats that the Conservatives have either just won and want to hold on to, or they want to win over from Labour. So this could be a really good policy for them to try and keep a hold of those seats.
Thank you so much for talking us through your proposals, Shreya Nanda, economist at the Institute for Public Policy Research, talking to us about how council tax could be, well, not entirely scrapped, but certainly rules rewritten.
Yeah, let us know what you think about that. gbviews@gbnews.uk. Right, it seems that we've been continuing to stay away from the shops. The latest data shows that retail sales fell by an estimated 0.9% in